Let's get right into another episode of the Hollow Points Podcast, where we accept the challenge of providing dangerous, thought-provoking, and sometimes controversial insights into life's most common topics. So, what's the point of today's conversation?
Well, I keep hearing so much about, mostly from women, sometimes men too. Mm-hmm. How is it in this day and age, all the research and all the equipment and everything we have access to, why do people keep getting used?
Okay. So I think there's a distinction between being used and misused. You want to be useful in some way, but we're not going to get into the semantics of that. I have 5 surefire ways that you cannot feel used when you're in a relationship or after a relationship is over. Okay. And the first one is real simple. Believe in patterns, not apologies.
Okay. So let me stop you there.
Okay.
You said, is there a difference between being used during a relationship or after it's over?
I think sometimes in retrospect, you start creating what is called revisionist history. Mm-hmm. And when you in it, it's a certain way. But then when you reflect back on it, just like a movie, like if you've ever seen, not The Sixth Sense, but what's The Usual Suspects. Mm-hmm. When he was Kaiser Soze, when he was telling the story, that shit made so much sense. But then when you start seeing all the clues that he was making up the story the whole time, you felt a totally different way about the entire situation. I think that sometimes you get in relationships and because you start creating concessions and you start seeing it with these rose-colored glasses, it's not until you step away from it and get out of that fog, that love fog, that you start seeing clearly this motherfucker never had your best interest in mind.
Okay, yeah. So tell me about the patterns then. What is a pattern? Is it 1 and we forgive? Or they have to do it 3 times? Or 5 like Candyman?
So that's this deep for me. I think a pattern is a repetitive situation that occurs based off of normal interactions. Meaning a person being late. That's obviously easy to pick up as a pattern. A person being disrespectful. A person being inconsiderate. A person that sleeps in, a person that's nasty, doesn't clean up. You know, if it's been 4 days and his toothbrush has not been wet and y'all been in a hotel for 4 days, he's not a toothbrusher. That's a pattern of yuck mouth. So you want to believe in these patterns as opposed to create excuses. Or the biggest thing is believe in patterns, not apologies, meaning when you do identify something and you stand up for yourself or you speak it, out loud to say, hey, I noticed this or I noticed that. And they say, oh, that won't happen again or I apologize. That's okay because all you can say is that you're sorry. Things do happen. But if it happens again and again and again, when it becomes repetitive, he borrowing your car. I'm going to give you something from back in the day. He borrowing your car and he keep being late to pick you up from work. So you going into work, he dropping you off, and then you standing outside your job waiting on somebody to come pick you up in your car. That is a pattern.
It is.
So the first time he could apologize for traffic. Yeah. The second time he could apologize because he had to fill up the tank and his car wasn't working right. After a while, he's just a late person picking. He's not considerate that you sitting outside your job saying goodbye to everybody that walks past you.
Right.
Asking you, is you okay? Do you need a ride?
Yeah. I agree with that. So at what point you just believe the actions? Do you actually observe sometimes? So his toothbrush hasn't been wet. So one day, do you just creep in and watch him brush his teeth and see if he has a tooth drying process?
I think that you know what you know. Women have intuition. So when you talk about from a woman's perspective, they can feel. They always say the woman that's being cheated on is the first to know because she can just feel it. But the fact is, if stuff in your gut or things that are before you don't feel a certain way or it just ain't making sense, believe that. We have a sixth sense. We have these senses at our disposal. We have to utilize them. And the one thing about patterns is you can have good patterns that you want to believe in. The fact is, when I use the term apologies, this is why I say believe in patterns. You want to believe in good patterns and bad patterns. If he opens your door all the time, that is a good pattern. Believe in that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
If he comes home late all the time, that's a bad pattern, depending on his employment. Believe in that. If you have a doctor, he's a surgeon, and he says he's going to be home at 6, and then 4 or 5 times in a row, the surgery went long, that's not something he necessarily controls, so to speak. So that's not a bad pattern, but it is a pattern. But if he's constantly apologizing for it, as you stated, the best way to apologize is
change that behavior. You have to.
that's it. That you accept that as the only form of real apology is okay. I'll take it. I'll accept your apology because all you can say is I apologize. But then the next level that you want to invoke is I don't want to see that again. Don't be sorry, ho. Be careful.
Right. But let me add to that so people don't get it twisted. Mm-hmm. Change behavior and restitution is the best. You can take it another level.
I don't know. The problem with restitution is that you create the equation that makes up for whatever didn't happen. So you cooked dinner and you had this special thing together for her or whatever the case may be. It didn't work out. She apologizes because that didn't work out. You accept her apology sincerely. What is the restitution for that? Her cooking? Because the special situation is gone now.
Now she has to cook twice. If I wreck your car,
right,
I can apologize.
Right.
Then I can stop driving reckless.
Right.
And then I can get your car fixed.
So this seems like 2 layers of restitution.
Stop driving reckless is restitution?
Yes. Because it's a change in behavior.
That's the change of behavior. That's I'm really sorry that I did that. And to show you that I am, I'm gonna stop doing it.
But I think if there was a situation where you could admit or accept that this happened because you were driving reckless, then that's a totally different conversation as opposed to people are not going to take the onus on themselves. They're going to say it was rainy, this person was driving crazy, I don't see that well at night, silly shit like that. They end up using as a conduit to their excuse for the apology. Mm-hmm. It's not just a pure, I was wrong, I knew I was wrong, and damn it, I'm going to get better. It was, I was wrong because of, I had been drinking a little bit, or you had made me mad. And so when I peeled out, I didn't realize, that a car was next to me, or whatever the case may be. So.
Oh yeah, I ain't accepting
that. But the reality of it is, though, if you even invoke an apology count, and I know we don't like too much counting, but if you say, you know what, I'm going to give this person 1 apology a week or 2 apologies a week, you'll quickly realize that this person is constantly taking advantage of your kind-heartedness. This person is constantly coming to you with apologies, and that itself is the pattern.
Okay, got it.
Cool. So the second thing I would say, so the first one is believe in patterns, not apologies. The second one is don't fall in love with potential.
So when you meet somebody, though, you're asking about their 5, 10-year, or 1-year goals, right?
Absolutely.
Don't fall in love with it. Do we listen to it? How do we take the information?
We like it a lot.
How do we
very interested.
Okay.
We're very interested and we like it a lot, but we don't fall in love. I was dating this girl one time, or I started talking to this girl, and it was the second date. And she said, I really like you. Starry-eyed, all this other stuff. I really like you. Mm-hmm. And my response was, and I'm very interested in getting to know you.
Okay.
Because that was the truth. I didn't know her enough to like her. Damn sure didn't know her enough to love her. I saw potential. I thought it would be something I'd be willing to invest in. And so I wanted to go further slowly to make sure this is what I was really thinking it was. The problem is, for women, when you're looking for love to fill that gap, any love will do. Therefore, when he can conjugate a few verbs and he smells good and he's tall enough and he's checked off these optic boxes that you have for yourself.
Right.
You met him. That was your love at first sight, the soulmate situation, all that stuff comes into play where you're going to build around the dream that you had of him, regardless of what you're seeing, he may or may not be. And a smart guy is going to listen to you attentively and then create that character in your image.
Okay, so are we wrong for wanting to fall for the person we met, listen to their past and forgive that or accept it, and fall in love for the person they want to be?
I think that
Because that's kind of potential, right?
It is. It's absolutely potential. And I do believe that it's a situation where the past is the past. Everybody has a past. You go down that road, it's going to be tough. Depending on how egregious the past is, some things you have to be able to get over. The only time the past becomes important is when it has a direct effect on the future. So if he has felonies and you always wanted a doctor, let that go. Mm-hmm. That's just not how this works. But the reason why the windshield is so much bigger than the rear view is because we got to be more concerned about what's in front of us, what's coming up. We driving down this highway of life. We have to be vigilant about what's coming up. So we do have to ask those probing questions as to where you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to be. If everything you're talking about is improvement as opposed to maintenance, that's a red flag to me. That's something that stands out. When you say, I want to be a better father, I want to be a better employee, I want to be, like, you want to be a lot of stuff. What have you done, though? What is active now? I've become this person. I've become that person. There's a much better conversation to have with someone who's trying to settle with you. So the potential is, I would love to do this one day. I would love to do that one day. The next question should be, how do you plan on getting there? How do you plan on having that? Because just talking about things openly is not good enough at a certain age, at a certain point. You can wax poetic when you're in your young 20s about all the places you want to go and things you want to see. But after a while, you have to start forecasting your life. Based on these conditions, this is where I see myself in 3 years, 4 years. Based on this education that I'm pursuing, based on this job training that I'm having, I could see myself being in this role. Or based on this date dynamic that we have, I could see us being 3 months down the line, going on our first trip together. Those are things that you want to apply from a potential perspective, but don't fall in love with that. Accept it, embrace it, enjoy it. But when you start falling in love with it, where that's all you see, and then you get devastated because it doesn't happen, that's on you.
I was totally against this point, but I see what you're saying.
Okay.
So let's look at, you're saying I want to be a better father. Let's take that.
Absolutely.
If you're a 1 right now and you're saying you want to be a 10,
yes,
that's a flag.
Absolutely.
But if you're a 7 and you're saying you want to be an 8,
yes,
okay, let's work with that. Let me see how I can help you grow. Okay, I got you.
Even if you don't require that help, at least you have a plan.
Yeah.
My mom always said to me, a good woman will accept you as you are if you have a good plan. Right. And she could see you chipping away at said plan.
Right.
Now, the moment where she sees that he say a lot of stuff that don't tend to happen, she has to be wise enough to step back and say, he's a talker. He's a Hollywood talker. I have my people call your people. We'll do lunch. I'll check in with you. But when it never comes to term, you got to cut bait because he's going to drag you into the deep end. It's a bad situation. But that's the potential that people just don't want to, they don't want to understand and accept because he's giving them this fairy tale or he's giving them what they think they want to hear.
Okay.
Understood. So obviously, interestingly enough, we talked about red flags. Number 3 is believe all red flags.
Okay. So are there some that are yellow that need to be investigated?
I think that once they become red, yes. I think there's going to be
red
situations.
First?
No, the thing about it is you could be precautious. And the fact is you're supposed to watch out for your own self-interest and think about how things affect you. But you can get into your head sometime based off previous baggage. You can kind of prejudice a situation based off of your experiences that not even exist. It's not even going to happen that way. For example, your last boyfriend was consistently late or didn't pay bills or whatever the case may be, and you get with this guy and one instance may be about to happen and you take it all the way to the last level when it never really occurred. You're indicting him for somebody else's crime. That's a yellow flag because it wasn't when you thought it was supposed to be, but communication solves all that. Red flags are red flags. It's stuff not only that you've seen come about, but some stuff that you feel. Sometimes you can feel red flags. You can feel like this ain't, man, you know what? I have no proof. I have nothing that can concretely say this is that, but something in my gut. You got to start believing in you and believing in your gut. Your gut means something. So once you start getting enough gut checks to where you're like, man, for whatever reason, he's that good that I don't get anything that I can produce to show in court. But my feelings is telling me this ain't it. This ain't what's going on. It's always a situation with the serial killers where they say he was such a quiet boy, you never would have thought. But
Right.
they kind of, you can feel it. You can feel it. And I think that that's the situation that with these red flags, and then some stuff is just overtly red flags. When you call from this time to this time, he never answers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
Right.
so unless he's at the gym religiously and you see the muscles,
Gotta see some evidence.
right, that's a red flag. You need receipts.
But so in that one, are we taking for granted that everybody understands they have some form of PTSD, relationship PTSD?
I
You
think
have
that-
to understand that first.
No, I think that it's become convenient to say, I've been through this, I'm not going through this again, even though it's a totally different person, totally different time. You're a totally different you.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to, like you said, have post-traumatic stress. And unfortunately, you apply that, and it's not until after you get out of it that you say, in retrospect, dang, I was tripping. Or dang, and then you blame old dude for
Mhm.
your last 3
Right.
failures in relationships.
And
You
it's-
can't drag that with you everywhere because you're going to consistently fail. That's your pattern.
Yeah.
You're going to consistently fail. But the red flag situation is that's something you can evaluate and say, is this a red flag or am I tripping? Because a lot of times if you know that you've been hurt because you believed in potential or you fell in love with potential, and because you listened to so many apologies and stuck through it to where you got worn down, you're a worn down broad.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're a worn down broad and you get a good dude, you actually don't deserve a good dude unless you revamp yourself to re-energize who you were or who you should be.
Mm-hmm.
But if he with you and you already got PTSD, he has to actually accept that or understand that with a couple questions that he can ask. If you keep bringing up old stuff from your old relationships, first and second, third date, he should know, wait a second, this ain't gonna work.
You're not ready.
You got too much baggage.
Mm-hmm.
I need to check that. That don't fly with me. Shout out Timmy. Shout out One Take Timmy.
So you said believe all red flags.
All red flags.
Do you believe all green flags?
Yes. Let me tell you why I believe.
Oh.
Let me tell you why.
It's not the buttercup?
I am a big proponent in believing my lying eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If I can see it and I'm smart enough, I believe it. Now, sometimes that may become a situation where somebody's shifty enough to dupe you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get away with it, I'm going to give you a handshake and a salute, slap her on the ass and say, that's what's up, you got me.
Mm-hmm.
It's been very few times where a motherfucker got me and I had to give it up to him. But that means it was a good run. That means we engaged. That means I was feeling it, she was trying,
Mm-hmm.
and she just got over on me. And I could walk away saying, I know how to not let that happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Those green flags are the things where they say it's better to love and lost than to never have loved at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's the love and lost part. That was the green flags.
Okay.
You fell into what you felt like was for you or what was good.
You tried.
You tried. And
Yeah.
nothing be the failure but a try. You at least try. You can say, you know what?
You
That
get
wasn't on
points.
me.
You get points for trying.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
I'll give effort grade, effort of conduct. You know
Because
what I'm saying?
the intent and the attempts were good
Absolutely.
in the try. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay, I got you.
But when you start, a lot of times in relationships, what you have with women, in my experience, is they start shutting down or it's too good to be true, so they start sabotaging it. I need to see if he real, so I'm gonna start acting up to see if he stick with me through the bad times. The bad times are gonna come by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to generate or create, manufacture bad times to see how he reacts.
Right.
You're not the military.
Mm-hmm.
You're not an obstacle course. Just let life happen and see how he adjusts to life in real time. Don't create life
Right.
in a situation to see what he gonna do. I just want to see what he gonna do, how he gonna react. That's childish,
Right.
and that's what run dudes off.
Right. Track star.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, that's a red flag for that he should be seeing. So the next one, number 4, and we only had 5, but this may be the hardest one. This concludes another episode of the Hollow Points Podcast, where we act as your therapeutic outlet on topics many think about but are afraid to speak on.
Oh, you're welcome.